And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called Through the Desert. Now this isn't the first time Through the Desert has been published. It's not the first time I've reviewed it. This is a brand new version of Through the Desert from Z-Man Games, but I think it probably would have come out from Wind Rider Games had they not been basically put together with Z-Man Games. But this is a classic game from Reiner Knizia. It is an abstract strategy style game in which you're placing camels on the board, and it has a lot of similarities on a very superficial level to a very popular game called Go. Let's take a look at the game. I love it. I already can tell you that because I played it before, but I want to show you what this version has, which is pretty much the same as other versions. But if you've never played it before, you're really missing out. Check it out. At the beginning of the game, players are going to be placing these palm trees in oases around the board, and then you're going to be putting these watering hole tokens, which are 1 through 3 randomly, on all the water holes and any oasis that didn't get a palm tree. Then each player is going to take their leaders. Each player has is a color. This is the player's color, for example, orange. You've one on each of the 5 different colored camels, and you're going to place those around the board in various spots. You can't be next to another leader. You can't go on top of a token. You can't be next to an oasis. And that's it. Each player also has a single camel, single color on a gray camel. This is just one to put in front of you so players know what color you are. On a player's turn, they're going to take 1 or 2 camels from these piles at the top of the board. When one of these piles is depleted, the game is over. The first and second players may only take 1 camel. After that, you take 2 camels. So when you take camels, you're going to be extending your caravans on the board. So let's say the purple player takes a green and a yellow camel. So they might put their green camel here, or they might put it here. If they put it here, they're going to get this 2 victory points, which they'll put in front of them. And maybe they'll put their yellow camel here. They can have their camels next to each other like that. And in fact, green might decide to zoom down here, but as green moves down on the board, they cannot put a camel here. Neither can the red player put a green camel here, because you can't have camels of the same color touching each other from different caravans. Different colors is fine. You know, the red player might move it up here if they want to, but they can't touch the other green camels. So whenever you're on top of one of these small watering holes, you're going to get 1 to 3 points. If you connect to an oasis, so let's say the blue player here connects to this oasis, then you're going to get a 5-point token. You get 5 points every time you connect to an oasis. You can only connect to each oasis 1 time per camel train. So the blue player might bring another color in later on, and this camel train can connect to another oasis and get 5 points. And then the other way to score points is if you manage to section off a whole part of the board. So look at this orange guy on the pink camel here. Let's say as the game progresses, he manages to do something like this. He now has sectioned off a whole section here of the board. He gets any watering hole tokens that are in there. If there's an oasis, you score 5 points for each. And at the end of the game, you get 1 point for each hex that's enclosed inside this. And that can not necessarily be on the outside of the board. It could also be attached to this rocky area, which you can't go into. Those are the rules of the game. Players are going to be slowly building trains up until, again, one of these colors here is gone. When that happens, you're going to see who has the longest train of camels in each color. That person's going to get 10 points, or in case of a tie, 5 points for each, tied winner. And whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. There's also some variants you can play. There's another whole side of the board which has a river on it, and every time you cross the river, you get 5 points. I should also mention that this area here is darker, and you won't use this if you're playing with only 2 to 3 players on each side of the board. And there's some other variants where you can place the watering tokens face down, which I don't really recommend. But that's pretty much the game. The whole concept here about these camels is they look like candy. These kind of look like marshmallows. They always have. They haven't changed these since the very first edition of the game, as far as I know. Now, these little riders on the back, you have to kind of snap them on at the beginning. Once they kind of snap on. They didn't all snap on as perfectly as I want them to, but they fit there well, and their colors are fairly distinguishable from the pastels. The palm trees are a two-piece plastic thing that you put together, and they pretty much stay together after that. And then these tokens, these are newer to this edition. The tokens are fine, the 5-point Oasis. They're a little more dull than before, maybe harder to see, but they also fit really nicely on the board itself, which has a really nice desert flare and looks a lot better than the original board of this did. But overall, really great components, and people are going to come over just to look at the pastel camels. Now really, the thing that's awesome about Through the Desert is the ratio of rules to gameplay. On your turn, you literally place 2 camels on the board. Now you have 5 colors to pick from, so I suppose you could place 2 green camels or a green and a blue or whatever. So your choices are more than you think and where you place your camels, but it is not difficult. And in fact, this game, unless you're playing with someone who really is thinky, is going to go at a really nice pace. Now, where you put your camels is fascinating. You have so many good choices. Take some of these water spots. They're all over the board. Get the 3s and the 2s. Get the 1s if you have to, but hey, they're points. Connect to an Oasis, that's 5 points. Cordon off a part of the board. Have a longer train than everybody else of camels. That's, you know, so you're thinking about all these things at one time. But there's definitely interaction because I'm growing this one out and you're like, whoa, I'm about to get cut in. I won't be able to use my green camels that much anymore. Or, you know, this person's going to go there. They're going to connect to that Oasis. Maybe I can block them. And while I'm blocking them, I'll get 5 points and I'll pick up a couple watering holes. Or getting areas. I found that new players often skip this part of the game. They don't think much about it. But if you're not careful, you can let someone get a decent sized area and get all those water spots in and an extra point for each of those spaces. Again, the game is so cleanly designed because it's simply just put 2 things on the board on your turn. You don't have a lot of choices. You're not looking at cards. You're not 16 different actions. It's place 2 camels. Now, the fact that the whole thing just looks delightful and delicious is you know, icing on the cake. But the fact that the game just plays so smoothly. This is easily what I would consider to be a classic game. Now, it's not been 2 decades since it's come out, but I think it's out long enough now, and this, I believe, is either the 3rd or 4th time it's been reprinted, to show that this game is excellent. Now, every time I compare it to Go, because you're cording off parts of the board, you're placing a couple pieces, some folks get upset because, you know, how dare I impugn on that great game Go. I don't mean to. But Go is a very heady game. When you play Go, I'm sitting there, my mind is turning to mush because of the options and what's going on. Through the Desert brings that down, but it doesn't mean that Through the Desert is some light, easygoing game. There's a lot of tactics and strategy involved in this game. I have a lot of different options, and it also scales really well. 5 players, there's a lot of things going on, but it also goes all the way down to 2 very nicely. And you're constantly sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going for the longest thing, that's 10 points. But it's also important to get the points right now and connect here. And you're watching these camels snake around the board and grow. The setup at the beginning of the game is fairly important, although your first game you won't know, so you just place them out. There's a lot going on. So a delicious looking game, a delicious playing game. Yeah, the theme doesn't really mean anything, caravans going around connecting in the desert, but it's a theme that works. Like you look at it and go, oh, camels connecting to oases, connecting to water spots. I like that. This particular version is exceptionally well done. It's a beautiful version. I'll be adding it to my collection. Highly recommend it. Through the Desert. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.